Hello, I'm JW. This is the final part in a series on the new 18th edition wiring regulations, and this time I'm going to have a look at the appendices, which are basically the things at the back which aren't technically part of the regulations, but they are in there with various bits of useful information. So the appendix section, or the appendices, and we've got quite a few of these here, actually numbered 1 to 17. However, not all of these have changes in, and we'll also see a couple here which aren't actually used, so of course we're not going to see all of the numbers here. Anyone we're not seeing, obviously we're not actually going to be looking at because it doesn't exist or there's no changes within. Now the only other point here at the bottom, we've got a note here which was in previously, so Appendix 1 is normative and is therefore a requirement. All other appendixes are informative and are provided as to guidance. So what's actually included here, apart from the first one here, which is British Standards, all of the rest of it is guidance only. It is not compulsory or part of the regulations themselves. So the actual changes themselves. So Appendix 1, which is the British Standards, there's a whole pile of changes within here. However, they're all basically where either regulation numbers have changed or references to various other standards have changed, as in the numbering or the year and various different versions and so on. So a whole load of changes there, but nothing of real any substance there. So we're not going to be looking through those. It's just basically referring to many other documents. So moving on to Appendix 2, the statutory regulations and associated memoranda. Again, a variety of changes here, mainly with like years changing and various versions. The main two things that have changed here are on the following page. So here we've got 6 and 7. These are now separate items. So number 6 is for installations on caravan parks, and number 7 is installations in theatres and other places of entertainment. Previously they were sort of all lumped together in one. Now they are two distinct separate items, and of course have their own particular things they're referring to within there. And then here we have number 17, which is a new item, and it's the construction products regulation. And this is an entirely new item here with the marks there, and also the sentence under the bottom here. This actually applies to a considerable amount of other stuff, and in the previous video it's already referenced that in a number of places. It's generally referred to as CPR in the rest of the document. Now Appendix 3, time current characteristics of overcurrent protected devices and RCDs. That's something we have in here which is new, as under maximum earth fault loop impedance. The maximum values of earth fault loop impedance to achieve the disconnection time vary with the different types of protected devices and also between manufacturers. This is an important bit. Wherever possible, designers should use the manufacturer's specific data. Alternatively, you can still use the tables and the calculations shown below. So the point here is that you're supposed to use the manufacturer's data for a particular circuit breaker, fuse or whatever else. In the absence of that, then you can use the tables and things as previously. And then the other part here which has been considerably added is this section here, which is actually above table 3A with the time and current performance criteria. All of this is actually new, and it's various suggestions on impedance measurements, ambient temperature, and various other regulations referred to, and there's the value formula installed there as well. So all of that is essentially a new part, and at the bottom here, note, which kind of makes the whole thing kind of pointless, the above is one method of correcting for the effects of temperature difference. Other methods are not precluded, so it's just one example that you could use. Other methods are available. Now Appendix 4, this is quite a lengthy one with the current carrying capacity and voltage drop for cables. There's a number of changes marked here, but they're all pretty much irrelevant and of no consequence. Now one thing you'll see in the actual book is that all of the tables from 4D1A onwards, and there's a considerable number of those, do have the mark in the margin suggesting that things have changed. However, all that's changed is in here we've got A, C and DC in capital letters, previously in lowercase, and that's going across all the columns. So although all the tables are marked as altering, in reality nothing is actually altered, it's just a creation of capital letters rather than lowercase. And on page 410 we have the world's most useless page. Yep, still in there. This page has been intentionally left blank, so there it is in all of its blank glory. So it's still in there, it was in the previous one, and it's in this one as well for some reason. Now Appendix 5, classification of external influences. Most of this is the same. The only thing that's actually highlighted up as new, and in fact is new on this page, is at the bottom here we've got the following key for use when referencing the list of external influences on the following pages, and we've got A, B and C in tiny text and the 3 items here. Now although this is actually new, it's not really new because all that's happened is this is now printed once at the front of this section, and then on the tables themselves it was previously printed at the bottom, and it was actually printed under each of the individual tables. So it's the same deal, the tables are basically the same, it's just that the actual key has been printed once at the beginning rather than many times throughout the pages. Now, Appendix 6, which is the model forms for certification and reporting, and these are the ones which you could theoretically use as is, but more likely they're just, like I said, as a model, which you then use as a basis for the forms and certificates that you would use in reality. Now, first of all, we've got the Minor Electrical Installation Work Certificate. This was always called this. In the text on the following page, it may have just referred to things like Minor Work Certificate and other things, so they've basically just put this full title in various places where it should really have been in the first place, so nothing particularly has changed there. Now, the actual form itself, we've got some additional pieces have been added in here. So now we've got at the top part 1, which is basically the description and location of the various things that you've actually changed. In part 2, now we've got the system earthing arrangement, earth fault limit impedance at the distribution board, supplying the final circuit, and again we've got the tick boxes for the protector conductors as before. Most of part 3 was already there, but now part 4 has quite a lot of extra spaces here for the various test results. So we've got your protective conductor continuity for the option one or the other there, continuity of ring final circuit conductors, of course if applicable, insulation resistance, satisfactory polarity, maximum method measured earth fault loop impedance, RCD operation, and the current of disconnection time and the test button operation. Now, the previous model form didn't have a lot of that in there, so this has been added in. However, test certificates in the real world quite often had most of this or all of this included anyway, so it's not really a big change, it's just that they've put it on the model now rather than just leaving a big hole there with a lot of stuff missing. And again, the declaration here at the bottom, and of course name and address and so on after that. The only other change is on the notes, which generally print on the reverse of that. We've now got this particular heading here, notes for the person producing the certificate, and then the notes are of course included. The heading is new, but pretty much the rest of it is not. Now, the electrical installation certificate, which is the sort of lengthier one for new circuits or similar new installations, most of this is actually the same. Again, it's marked as the whole thing's changed, but in reality that hasn't actually happened. Again, there might be some minor differences there, but nothing of particular relevance there. As with the minor works one, we've got the new heading here, notes of the person producing the certificate, and again that's just the notes listed here. One thing that has been added is the part here which says, or the replacement of a consumer unit or distribution board. Now, of course, the electrical installation certificate was always used for those things, but it's now been just specifically listed there, so it's now to be used for the initial certification of a new installation, or for an additional alteration to an existing installation where new circuits have been introduced, or the replacement of a consumer unit or distribution board. So just clarifying that it is in fact the one to be used in the circumstances there. Note 5 is a minor change there, and basically we've now got it to contain the number of sheets involved for both the inspections and test results. Previously only listed one of those for some reason. The electrical installation condition report, again this is substantially similar despite the fact that it's highlighted as all changed. Nothing really particularly new there. On the notes here we do have an extra part that has been added in, and it's note number 1, so this report should only be used for reporting on the condition of an existing electrical installation and not for the replacement of a consumer unit or distribution board. So this isn't new either, because again it's the whole point of that is it's just for an existing one, but it now specifically states that it is not to be used when you're replacing a consumer unit or distribution board. And most of the rest of this is essentially the same. The only addition here at the bottom is number 12. Any deficiencies with intake equipment should be reported to the person ordering the work. So that's a new one. So schedule of inspections, and again this is the part that goes with either of the two previous documents there, either the certificate or the inspection report. The main one here is got on section 1 or item 1, external condition of intake equipment. It now states visual inspection only, and that's for things like the service cable, metering and so on. That's not really a change because clearly it was pretty much going to be visual only anyhow, because there's nothing that you can test on those, but just highlight up as visual inspection only. There are a number of other changes on the rest of this, mostly where regulations things have been changed or renumbered elsewhere, so of course the numbers have changed here as well. And the final part here is the test results here, and there's a few changes on this one. Again, this is just a generic or a model for this, so there's no compulsion to actually use this one. Just probably carry on using the same forms that you're buying, or the software or whatever, as previously. We've now got in here protective device across the top of the various columns here. Previously it said overcurrent device, so there's a minor wording change. In terms of the columns themselves, most of these are the same. We've got a couple of additional columns now. We've got one here for the actual RCD trip current, so that's in milliamps, so typically it will be say 30 milliamps or other values are available, so that's now added in here. Also have the maximum permitted loop impedance. Again, that's put in there. That was included on quite a lot of other forms anyway, it's just been added to the model here. Further on here we've got a new column for the installation resistance test voltage, so again you're filling that in there. 500 volts for most single phase installations, although again other voltages are available. And then the final column here is the one here for AFDDs, or arc fault detection devices. And basically it's just confirming that you've operated it with the test button, and it did operate satisfactorily. So yeah, nothing too surprising with that. Now what's been removed here for the RCD, we've still got the disconnection time here, but you notice there's only one column. Previously there were the two columns for the 1x and 5x, so now it's just been sort of mangled together with the disconnection time for that. And presumably the intent here would be to just have the shortest one, which is going to be the one at 5 times, and we've seen that in the previous parts of this as well. The rest of it is pretty much as it always was, so at the top there you've got the generic information and the details of the circuit, any vulnerable equipment, which in these days is quite a lot of stuff. Test equipment's used, of course, and then just your say columns underneath there with the circuits listed as needed. And say in reality you're not going to be using this particular form, you're going to be using say pads of things you've purchased, or use as more likely software which has the various things included for you. Now Appendix 8, which is current carrying capacity and voltage drop for BUSBAR trunking and POWERTRACK systems. Again, a lot of marks here. This is another one of these where it's been considerably sort of rearranged and rewritten. Nothing desperately new there. The only real changes are to the rating factors here for current carrying capacity, and there's a number of alterations here, but nothing too surprising in there. I think it's pretty much all the same as before, other than a few minor changes in here. Now, the next one is Appendix 14, determination of prospective fault current. Now this is in theory entirely new, hence the line all the way down the side there. And what's happened here is that what used to be in Appendix 14 has been relocated into Appendix 3, which we've already seen. So this is in theory new, and obviously the title there is about determining the fault current. However, most of this isn't particularly new. It's been sort of assembled and collated from various other areas. So the actual procedures and the principles here are pretty much the same as they always were. It's now just been put into a single block of text here as its own appendix. So just a few points here, things like in a three-phase installation, the highest prospective fault current occurs with a simultaneous fault between all of the line conductors. Well, nothing new there either. You can get an approximation of the fault current between all line conductors by measuring between line and neutral and multiplying by 2. Again, that's been the same pretty much forever. And pretty much the rest of it, again, it's all the sort of same standard things in previous things, but obviously rearranged. We've still got the 16Ka thing here from the particular standards for consumer unit, and then you don't have to calculate the origin of the supply. Again, nothing really new there either. Appendix 15 hasn't changed at all. We've still got the satanic ring final circuits included, so if you must install them, then of course you can continue to do so. Now Appendix 16, which is devices protection against overvoltage, or surge protective devices in other words. Not a lot has changed here. There's a minor change to the diagrams on the pages here and following pages. The difference here is we've now got the box here, which is referred to as 7, which is listed as an SPD assembly, and what we've now got is we've got overcurrent protective devices shown within the assembly for the surge protective devices. So surge protective devices here, and then you have your overcurrent protective devices here if required. Now previously on these diagrams these were shown as an option, but they're actually shown outside of the surge protector devices. It was two completely separate pieces. Now it's just been shown as within the same assembly. And SPD assembly is a new definition as well. Obviously we saw that in a previous episode, and that's pretty much the same on all of the other diagrams in this section. So yeah, nothing surprisingly new there. And of course electrically it's the same, it's just that they're now within the same piece of equipment rather than two separate items. Now the final part is Appendix 17. This is an entirely new appendix, didn't exist previously, and it's on energy efficiency. And in terms of its content, we've got a full page there, a couple of pages there, and sort of a page and a half at the end there. So a moderate amount of stuff, but nothing too outrageous. And so at the top here, the point of this is this appendix provides recommendations for the design and erection of electrical installations, including installations having local production and storage of energy for optimising the overall efficient use of electricity. And the main point here as well is it's intended that this appendix will be developed into Part 8 of BS7671 in a future amendment. So at the moment this is just a suggestion, again not compulsory, not part of the regulations. However, it's going to be a Part 8 at some point in the fairly near future, possibly the next amendment or whatever. So although it's not compulsory at the moment, it's well worth having a look through this whole section just to be aware that in some point a whole new Part 8 will be appearing based on this and probably containing a whole lot more information and detail than it does at the moment. Most of what this concerns is things such as voltage drop, making sure it's obviously a low level, make sure that the actual cross-section area of conductors is a suitable size, but obviously compared to not wasting energy by heating the actual cables, power factor correction, and various other items as well. So all of these principles pretty much exist already, but again it's putting it into an entire section there. And now it's not just a question of the equipment in the installation needs to be energy efficient, it's actually the installation itself, so in terms of the actual wiring used and the wiring systems used. And there's also another parts in here, say about sort of energy monitoring and energy sensors, that kind of thing as well. So quite a lot of stuff there that's going to inevitably appear in a new Part 8, but for the moment of course it is not, it's just an appendix, so read through it but don't actually necessarily apply it to the installations at the moment. Now that's it for the appendices, and of course that's actually the end of the book as well, other than the index and other bits there. So until next time, thanks for watching.